Likkutei Torah, Parshas Pinchas, page 154. Okay, the pasuk says, "Savas b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleim es karboni lachmi liishai." Okay, it's the same beginning of the mimer that we learned last year. But the pasuk says like this: "Command the Yidden, tell them karboni lachmi liishai, my sacrifice, my bread for my burnt offerings, and you should tell them v'amarta aleim zel isha shetukir v'lashem." This is the burnt offering you should bring to Hashem as kevesechat tasav habeker, one lamb in the morning, one lamb in the afternoon, and so on. So he says, the law in Kefil, based upon V'amarta. It says, Savas b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleihem, and then it says again v'amarta lehem. Why does it have to repeat the word v'amarta? V'gam shinu loshin dechsiv asher takrivu. It says, first the pasuk begins, asher takrivu laHashem, should be bring it as a sacrifice to Hashem. And then the pasuk at the end says, you should make it in the morning. It should say you should bring it in the morning. Pasuk starts over bringing the korbanos, right? And then it says, and do the korban. Why doesn't it just say bring the korban? The gam takrivu loshen rabim. Also, when it says takrivu, it means plural, bring plural. And then it says ta'asa, singular. It should say ta'asu. Okay, the Inyan is like this. Chazal tell us, whenever the Torah uses the word sav, it means miyad, immediately, uladeiris, and for all generations. That's what the Gemara says. When it says sav, it means now and for all generations. And that's the double expression, amira v'amarta lehem means miyad. One v'amarta means bring it now. And the second one means always. What does that mean? Inyan HaKarbonis she'ikrivu bizman she'beis HaMikdash kayim. That one, the first one says when the Beis HaMikdash is existing, bring the Karbonis. Then there's no Beis HaMikdash. So what does it mean? For all deiras, for all generations. V'amarta lehem aynu l'deiras she'tiknu tefillah keneged t'midim. But the Gemara means, but the term means, therefore, according to this, that you should bring korbanos when there's a Beis HaMikdash, and even when there's no Beis HaMikdash, you should daven instead. So that's the way we have korbanos on a permanent basis. And we need to understand. What's the connection between davening and bringing a korban? He says, Tefillah is bakoshes rachamim. Tefillah is asking Hashem for mercy. What does this have to do with bringing an animal, a korban? Like, Tefillah is by asking Hashem for mercy, that's like we brought a korban. Like, what's the connection between the two? Gam lahov and mashakot, so b'korbanos we need to understand. By korbanos it says, reach nichayach, lo shenachas ruach, which means an expression of enjoyment, nachas, v'gabi noyach ksiv, v'yorach Hashem esreach anichayach. Over there it doesn't say nachas ruach. It says, eze nachas ruach. So the question is, what is the nachas ruach? What do you get from the smell of korbanos? One second. Yeah, but it says, reach nichayachi. That the korban is nachas ruach shamarti v'nasiratzin. Okay. Right? So the question is, all these questions about the korban is basically the double expression yamarta, immediately for all generations. One refers to bringing a korban when there's a Beis HaMikdash. One refers to davening. How does davening replace a korban? You know, all these questions. And how can a korban be a good nachas ruach, an enjoyment for Hashem? What pleasure is there when a Jew brings a korban? Okay, so he says, Inyan, it's known, the ultimate purpose of the neshama coming into the world. What's the ultimate purpose of a neshama coming down in the body and nefesh habamis is yerida tzedach aliyahi. is for the neshama to become elevated to a place greater than it was before it came down. V'nei kedem shenivra ha'olam, before Hashem created the world, the Medrash says, Hayu Shmei Bolvat. It says, the Medrash says, before Hashem created the world, Hayahu Shmei Bolvat. Only who, what existed? There was no world yet. Only Hashem and His name existed. And he says, Shmei B'Gmat Yiratzeh. It's an interesting thing. The Alter Rebbe says Shmei, name, is the same numerical value as Ratzein, will. Shmei equals 346, and Ratzein also equals 346. Meaning, that means what existed before the world? Hashem and His will. This is the sustenance of the Nivroim. Why? Because as the Chazal use the expression, it entered Hashem's simplistic will, Lias Melech Shmei Nikra, to be called a king. Why did Hashem create a world? Because He wanted to be a king. In order to be a king, you need to have subjects. So therefore Hashem created subjects to be able to be a king. Which is Levad, the Yachid, the Mechut, Miyuchad, that Hashem is the only existence. What do we say? Yachid, Hashem is alone. The life of the world is only the level of Melech Malchus, which is the lowest of all the spheres, which represents the name of Hashem. How does a king rule? By his name. The king doesn't go anywhere. The name of the king rules. So he said, meaning it was a level of Malchus, it was a level of Elokus. The way it wasn't even revealed yet to world. There was no world to reveal it to. So before Hashem created the world, the will of Hashem to create the world was part of Hashem. Like the ray of the sun in the sun. It's only a ray. But that ray existed within the sun. Like we learned in other places. The sun has rays in it. Before the rays shine out of the sun, there's only the sun. But there are rays in the sun. But before they shine out, it's only the sun. Because they're completely bottled. Before Hashem created the world, Hashem and His will to create the world, because there was no revelation of the will yet, there was no world yet, so the only thing that existed was Hashem Himself. Normally, you can't have a king if there's no subjects. In fact, Chassidus asks the question, a lot of places. So we say, Adonai Elam Hashem Malach, that Hashem, the master of the world, who ruled, B'tedem Kol Yitzur Nivra, before anything was formed. So Chassidus asks the question, how can Hashem be a king if there's no world yet? Because if there's no nation, you don't have a king. How can you say Hashem world before? So Chassidus explains it refers to Malchus, the Ein Sof Lifnei HaTzimtzum, the way the Malchus was still within Hashem, and the only thing that existed was Hashem, but that's the eventual potential, and Koyach Hayuli, the potential for a world to exist.
He's king over himself, Rabbi.
You can't be a king over yourself. You can't even be a king over your own kids, because your own kids are an extension of you. The only thing you could be on is on subjects which are foreigners who subjugate themselves to the king. That's the definition.
So even the beginning of Malchus was always present in Hashem.
Yeah, but he's saying that was part of Hashem. It was Shmei Bovad, meaning the level of Malchus, the way it was in Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And after the world was created, then the ray of the sun, so to speak, revealed itself outside of the sun. Malchus revealed itself outside the source of Elokus. Lahachis nivroy miyayin liyesh, to give life and existence to creations. Abeseder ishtaushas hamadreiks, of ilov all cause and effect, ad elam hazeh gashmi, until it created even through the descent down. It created elam hazeh gashmi, v'daven nifred mamish, in a separate entity. So you can imagine that from the level of Elokus, which is the way Malchus was in Elokus before the world was created, coming down all the way to create something which is a completely separate entity, or so it feels, a completely separate entity from Hashem, is a tremendous descent. And that's why the Neshama is saying, is coming down all that way to reach a higher level of Elokus than Malchus to Ein Sof in Ein Sof itself. It was a part of Hashem, right? Before Hashem created the world, Malchus was the ray of the sun in the sun. The only thing that existed, but not even a ray, the only thing that existed is Elokus, the essence of Hashem. Now this ray goes out of the sun, so to speak, and it lowers itself to the extent you can create entities that deny the existence of Hashem.
Rabbi, can I ask you
What?
When we say Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimlach Le'olam, meaning that Hashem reigned before he was a king even before the world was created, because you say Hashem Melech, going back.
First of all, Hashem Melech doesn't mean necessarily he was a king before the world was created. It could be he was a king 1,000 years ago. But again, the concept of Melech before world, there was a level of Malchusay. But the Malchus was part of who? It raised the sun in the sun. Now it came out, revealed, so now it can create a world, not only Atzilus, it could create a world which feels itself completely devoid of Hashem.
But that's Malchus,
The only way, we learned this many times, the only attribute of Hashem that we find past, present, and future is only in Malchus. Because Malchus created the world. So Malchus is a level that's connected to time and place. Above Malchus, there is no time and place. If there's no time and place, you can't say Hashem was Elokim, is Elokim, will be Elokim. Because that attribute of Gvura, you can't say was, is, will be, because in Gvura there was no time and place yet. Malchus, which is already Vayomer Elokim, Vayomer Elokim, Vayomer Elokim. Malchus is the level of Hashem that creates world. So over there you have past, present, and future. What? Yeah, time and place are interconnected. Time is how long something exists. If there's no something, there can't be time. So what's the ultimate purpose of this descent? In other words, not only even the neshama. Why did Hashem take Malchus de Ein Sof, Lifnei HaTzimtzum, so to speak, and bring it down all the way to create a world? In other words, like we learned, Hashem created yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing. Our job is to make the yesh back into ayin. What do you mean back into ayin? That's completely bottled Hashem. It should be part of ayin again. It should become bottled. That's the primary elevation of why Hashem created the world. The pasuk says in Tehillim, the Levyasan that Hashem created to play with. What does that mean? That's the enjoyment and entertainment that Hashem has. In other words, like this. Chassidus explains, people get entertainment from something new. Something you always have is not entertaining. The uniqueness of Chassidus always brings down the mashal of a bird, the tzipar medaberes. The parrot, people have entertainment from it. What's the entertainment Hashem has in creating the world? So the answer is very simple. That Elokus is batul telokus is boring. It's SOS, same old, same old. What does Hashem want? I want to create something that by nature is not batul telokus, and now it becomes batul telokus. That entertainment is unbelievable, because it becomes the opposite of what it stands for. That's a change. That's different. That's entertainment.
He wanted to be different.
What?
Wanted to be different.
Yes.
He's playing with it.
That's what the Alter Rebbe says on the concept. Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu Yisbar L'Retachtenim. On a taiva, you can't ask why, because there's no seichel in it. It's above seichel. On a chayik, you can't ask why. The answer is because Hashem said so. There's no reason. I mean, there is, but as far as we're concerned, there's no reason. Hashem, for whatever reason wanted. He wanted and decided and therefore created an enjoyment of, like the Rambam says, why is about tshuva precious by Hashem? Because it's a new person. You took a sinner and now he became devoted. A person who's devoted stays devoted is not such a great simcha. So what's the uniqueness of about tshuva? He lived one way, now he becomes a different way. So the same thing, what is it? That's why it says neshama comes down into the world to be about tshuva. I mean, to create something new. What's the newness? That Hashem created a yesh from ayin, and our job is to make the yesh back into the ayin. What do you mean back in? Not that it disappears. When you do a mitzvah, the gashmistic thing doesn't disappear. It stays physical, but the physical is batul telukus. That's a much greater level than a neshama batul telukus.
Tzaddikim do this constantly. When you say tzaddik doesn't sin, but they become.
That's why tzaddik has to do tshuva also, we learned.
Yeah, it's on his level.
Correct.
So it's not like just about tshuva. It's like everybody's in a certain.
Yeah, I'm talking about the concept of tshuva.
When a Jew does a mitzvah, it's a chidush Baruch, which is different.
That something physical became holy. That a Jew who has a nefesh abamis, who's interested in every who knows what in the world, does a mitzvah.
It's an entertaining chidush.
No, the chiddush is entertaining. And through this, because it's unique, so therefore the neshama becomes greater than was before. Because it accomplished something that it couldn't accomplish up there. Up there, the neshama couldn't take yesh and make it into ayin because there's no yesh there. So what's the enjoyment? Hashem makes the yesh, sticks the neshama in a body, nefesh abamis, which is a heavy-duty yesh, and the Jew makes that yesh into ayin. That the neshama couldn't do l'mayla.
And Mashiach is going to end it.
He's going to end it, Nebuch.
And then Hashem would not have any enjoyment.
No, the enjoyment is that the mission was accomplished.
So then he's going to create a new side.
A new mission for you.
It says when Mashiach comes, we're going to long back to the Gullus, the good old Gullus days when we could have accomplished much more. Mashiach comes, there's not going to be any evil. So then we're going to look back and say, you know, Jews always complain. They have now, they want Mashiach. Mashiach comes and they say, oh, we missed the good old days.
Shekayah,